This may come as a shock to some people, but there was a lot of voters on both sides of the political divide that were unhappy with their candidates this last election. Many people voted for someone that they were not passionate about, simply because they considered them the lesser of two evils. This is obviously a very common occurrence. Most elections in the last 30 years seem to be more about voting against someone rather than voting for someone that truly represents you and your best interest. Well, I think it's time we change that. My name is Jonah, and I am spearheading a movement to commandeer the Democratic Party. The truth of the matter is that the leaders of the Democratic Party have been selling out the interests of their voters for decades. They rarely lead, they rarely inspire, and they regularly take for granted the votes of minorities and women. In the rare event that they do have a representative that inspires, that representative always disappoints or underperforms to the point of negligence or betrayal. For example, in 1999, Bill Clinton signed the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which was a series of regulations that safeguarded Americans in numerous ways, but largely by preventing banks from gambling with and taking huge risks with your money. This, of course, led to banks gambling with your money and the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. If someone out there wants to refresh my memory, who went to jail after that recession? We know a ton of crime was committed during that time. Banks failed to perform due diligence, bad mortgages were bundled and sold as AAA rated investments to other firms who then gambled your retirement accounts on those bad mortgages. A lot of rich people got richer, and a lot of good citizens working productive 40-hour-a-week jobs lost their retirement and their savings. You paid the price. You got punished for someone else's greed. And what happened to them? Nothing. Many companies got bailed out by your tax dollars, so you actually got ripped off on multiple levels. Many executives were caught doing illegal things, but they didn't face a fine or jail time. The company they worked for got a fine that was less than 0.001% of the profits they accrued during their gambling spree, and usually they didn't even pay that fine. Which begs the question, when was the last time you went $3 billion into debt through reckless behavior and the government just bailed you out? Are you happy knowing that there is a class of people in this country that are not accountable in any way and are above the law? Elected Democrats sat back and did nothing to stop your life savings from being stolen. They didn't prevent it when they could have, and they certainly did nothing to punish those that did it after it happened. They are not bought and paid for in the exact same way that the Republican Party is bought and paid for, but the effects are pretty similar. Rich people and powerful businesses are, largely, above the law, and they are stealing from you and squeezing you in 100 different ways every day, whether you realize it or not. And they are doing so with zero accountability. And while I would love to go into more details and offer more specifics about the ways your money is being stolen from you so that super wealthy people can become ultra wealthy people, I'm going to save that deep dive for one of my next videos. The point is, a lot of people abstain from voting because they don't feel like the Democratic Party really stands up for them. And those people have plenty of evidence to justify that feeling. And while I can point out many successes of the Democratic Party in terms of advancements in gay rights and other protections for various persecuted groups, as well as environmental successes, it should be pointed out that elected Democrats always had to be dragged kicking and screaming to the finish line on those issues. Obama did not support or fight for marriage equality for most of his presidency. He never fought for single-payer health care, even though he knew it was better and more cost-effective than the Affordable Care Act, which was a recycled version of a plan some Republicans drew up in the 90s. I originally thought it was the Democratic National Committee that needed new leadership in order to make the party more relevant to voters, but I was wrong. Because the DNC has had progressive leaders in the past, and those leaders were ignored by elected Democrats like Obama, Pelosi, Biden, etc. So we need to aim for the top. We need a populist movement to commandeer the Democratic Party and nominate someone of our choosing to the White House, someone that is not already a member of a corrupt system. I am normally a big fan of expertise, and I would argue that it is better to fix and repair a broken party from the inside rather than try and overthrow it from the outside. But the problem with that is every person we elect through the standard methods has already been bought and paid for by the system that exists now. That is why they don't fight for us once they get elected. Joe Biden used to fight for reform to our campaign finance laws so that politicians could focus more on your needs rather than raising money. Once he was on the national stage as Obama's vice president, he never mentioned campaign finance reform in any meaningful way. And campaign finance reform will literally be the main piece of our agenda in this movement. Your politicians do not fight for you because they are bought by the rich and powerful. If we remove the methods by which they are bought, then we will start to see them actually represent us again. There are certain failings in our election system that cannot be fixed by the president on their own, but there are certain things that can be changed via executive order, and we will not shy away from that. Unlike previous elected Democrats, we will not be playing nice. We will not try to meet the other side in some fantasy middle ground that doesn't exist. What is the middle ground between corruption and anti-corruption anyway? Among the many changes we plan to make to our election system, one will be the duration of the campaign. Right now, there is a lot of financial incentive to always be campaigning, because that way a candidate and all of the fundraisers can always be asking you for money. That is why wedge issues like abortion are so important. They need issues that people are passionate about so that they can perpetually raise money. And do you think all that money they raise goes to commercials? No, it gets funneled to family members and friends and back to them eventually because they know everyone else is doing the exact same thing. And so no one will try to get them in trouble. And in the event a politician does it in such a way that it is glaringly obvious that the general public can't even ignore it, what happens? Congress sends them a letter expressing to them that they are disappointed in their actions, but no monetary fine and usually no consequences whatsoever. But this is all part of the reason we never stop being bombarded with politics. This is why the election season never ends in this country, which is not how it works in almost every other country in the world. And this is also why our elected officials don't really accomplish much for us. They fully admit that they need to fundraise so that they can outspend the evil person on the other side. It is supposed to be illegal to fundraise while an elected official is working or legislating. How often do you think those laws are actually enforced? I've rambled and I apologize, but to sum up, we are never going to see meaningful improvements in our elected officials and our country until we get the money out of politics. And we are never going to do that without a movement like this. We need to consolidate our various motivations into one purposeful effort to commandeer the Democratic Party and elect someone that has no interest in giving into corruption. This was not possible before social media, but we can do this now. And it is important to point out, I do not want your money. I don't have a GoFundMe set up or anything like that because that isn't what this is about. If you'd like, please show your support by liking and subscribing. Maybe share it with someone you think might be frustrated with the current system. Just do that, and this will grow organically. I will continue to post videos once or twice a week, depending on my availability. My next video will be regarding more specific examples of how you are being robbed by corporations and how neither party is protecting you from that, because it benefits them to allow businesses to rob you. The video after that will probably be about abortion and other wedge issues that your elected officials mostly don't care about in any sincere way, but do love to use to divide you. I promise you they will be discussed in a way that is respectful, but you probably haven't heard before. I'll talk to you soon.